search of the 3 missing Montgomery College students continues in Frederick County.
And I got to play with your wand. It was great.
Definitely fun.
Keep going.
Welcome to Footage Foreplay.
I'm so happy to be here.
Oh my God, Alex. You're a star. Let me tell you, when you Up 8, you came in, you slayed that showing of your movie, What I Remember. Let me tell you, because people were leaving in tears. People said, oh my God, I can't believe I just love this movie. And you came out with your whole crew and they're all having that little signing. They were so happy to do that, by the way. I could tell, like, they were just glowing. You were too. Your movie. Anyway, so it was good to have you. You're always coming to UF and hanging out with everybody, watching all the movies. So this is great to have you here on the show because we got lots to talk about. So how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm very busy. I spent a lot of last year and this year working on What I Remember, and then it premiered, and now it's like now I have all these other things I have to worry about that I've been putting off. So I am working on many things.
Oh, so you're playing catch up.
Yes.
Oh, nice. Well, tell us about you, Alex, before we get into everything. Who's Alex? What got you into filmmaking and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so my name is Alex Hera. I'm a writer and film director. I've been making films since 2018. I've been a storyteller my entire life. I wanted to be a novelist when I was younger, and then I grew up and decided I wanted to make movies. And so I made a ARG web series, and then a couple of documentaries, and then a docu-series about Slender Man. And then I made What I Remember, which is a found footage mystery drama, which premiered this year at Unnamed Footage Festival.
Yes. And it was great. It was a great showing. There was a lot of people that came out to see this, and it was really well done. And was that your first feature, right, that you've made? Directed, wrote?
You know, that's an interesting question because a lot of people refer to it as my debut feature, which, like, in some sense it is, right? It's the first narrative film that I built from the ground up as a narrative film, but it's actually my 7th feature film because my ARG web series was compiled into a feature film after its completion. There was a feature documentary about the making of that web series. Then I made my feature documentary, The History of Analog Horror, and then 3 feature films for the Slenderverse docuseries. So technically, I consider it my 7th.
Oh, okay. Lucky number 7. Let's go. Love it. Okay, cool. So what you said you are working on a bunch of stuff. Is this like another movie you're working on, or is this just like post stuff from after the screening? And are you adding to the movie, or what's going on with that?
So the film is essentially complete. I'm waiting to hear back from other film festival acceptances and see where else it'll be screening. And so I'll be posting about that whenever I find out. But other than that, I have a number of other projects I'm working on, including another documentary, an ARG web series. There's a charity event happening in June that I'm working on. I have a TV episode at some point. And I'm also working on a novel. So there's a number of things.
A novel?
In the pipeline. Yeah.
Oh my God, you are fucking busy. You put me to shame. Russell was getting on me about taking naps. He was like, well, how you got time for a nap? I'll be tired after work and doing a lot of stuff. I'll be needing to sleep. So you is making me tired just talking, listening to this. That's crazy. Your work ethic.
So my reputation around like my friends and everything is always that I'm constantly busy. And they make jokes. They're like, well, how many projects are you working on now? Like 10? And I'm like, no, it's only 7.
Aw. Nice. And
I think that's great. You got a fire under you, you know?
Yeah, you're located here in the Bay Area, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was never sure. I was just wondering. Okay, cool. So tell us about What I Remember. How did this come about? Because this is a story you've been wanting to tell for a while, right? And you finally got it into fruition. Tell us about the making of that.
Well, What I Remember actually has a very kind of long history for me in terms of like its creative development. When I was working on my ARG web series in 2020 and 2021, Walker Creek, I became really kind of fascinated with this idea of a found footage drama. Like, what does it look like if you do found footage but you don't have horror? It's just people, it's just characters, it's just dialogue. Like, what does that look like? And so I did a little bit of experimenting to a point where I felt, I was like, yeah, I tried it. But I never felt like satisfied. I never felt like I explored it in the way I wanted to. And I had still never seen any like films that had really done it the way I was envisioning. I was like, something that really is like a non-horror found footage film. And so, like in, I believe, early 2023, I ended up just kind of creating this little short film. It was a little experiment. It was like 5 minutes long. It was called What I Remember. And what we did was I got a couple of people together, and we made this mostly improvised. I think like it was 50% improv, 50% scripted. This like 5 minute short film that was about like this person, Sam, who's going back through like this video diary of her best friend, Ryan, who went missing. And it's a very short, kind of, I think, poignant piece. And people really responded to it in a way I didn't expect. It came together so much better than I expected it to, for how kind of experimental and just kind of exploratory it was for me. It came together as a very cohesive piece, and people really enjoyed it. And so that kind of...
for context, too, you submitted that short to the festival, and we showed the short version as well. Yeah. And I thought that I think you're selling yourself short on this short. That was a weird fucking thing to say out loud. Yeah. But no, because you really sort of, with this, especially knowing that a lot of it was improv, which I fuck with because I love like mumblecore and a lot of improvised like dramatic type movies. And I think you were able to kind of infer a lot of things with that by the time the short ended, you had more questions than answers in like a great way, though. Like I felt like, and you kind of allowed the viewer with the short version to fill in the gaps themselves a little bit and be like, well, did this happen or that, what exactly? And I think you gave everything more context with the feature version, and you shifted some stuff. But I just wanted to say, don't sell yourself short there, because I think the short was really good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, people really responded to it. And everyone also kept asking me, hey, what happened to Ryan? Like, why did Ryan go missing? And I was like, you're missing the point. Mm-hmm. But also, just wait for the feature version. Because when it screened at UF last year, that was kind of on the tail end of the festival run for that short film. It was 2024, and we made the short in early 2023. And so that was actually its last festival screening. And when I went up to do the intro, I believe that was like the first time I publicly said, like, yes, I'm working on a feature version of this. Because people kept asking me during the rest of the festival run, like, are we going to learn more? And so it was, I think, like, during the summer of 2023, the same year we shot the original What I Remember, we actually did a second proof of concept short film that was not released to the public. Because the idea was basically I wrote like a chunk of the script, and then it was a very difficult chunk of the script. I wanted to like do the hardest part and see like how that would come together to sort of inform what the rest of the script was going to look like. And so we did that just kind of as a test as well before I went into writing the feature that summer and fall. And so, like, again, this idea of a found footage drama just wouldn't leave me alone. And since it worked so well in the short film, I was like, well, I guess now I have to do the feature. Like, there's no way out of it. I have to see this through to the end. This idea that's been latched onto my brain for the last, 3 years. Like, no one else is going to do it. It's my idea. Like, I have to do it. And so I started writing the script, and it was kind of a difficult process at first, because with the short film, at the time I was doing the Slenderverse docuseries, and so I was talking with a lot of the people behind the Slenderverse web series, and a lot of them did a lot of this improv, this guided improv is what they called it. And also there are a number of like Slenderverse episodes and web series that are like majority drama, that aren't like super horror-y, they're just kind of creepy. And so I was kind of like, I was surrounded by all of these things, like, as I was writing, because it was like I was sort of splitting my time between the Slenderverse docuseries and What I Remember. And so there was this sort of ebb and flow of it, of figuring out, like, how much of this, like just how do I put it together? And also, how do I like create a feature story from a 5-minute short film that was basically like an exploratory test, right? Like, I didn't have the full plot written. When I said earlier, like, everyone kept asking me what happened to Ryan, like, my answer was, well, I'm not going to tell you. But the real answer was, I don't know. Like, so I ended up going through a couple of different versions of What I Remember. I never like wrote the full scripts for all of these, but there was like a punk rock murder mystery version. There was like a there were a number of different like plot points. There was like a crime thriller version, and eventually I settled on this sort of like, none of those felt poignant enough. They didn't feel emotional. They didn't feel satisfying on like a character level than on a thematic level, right? Like, I think that was one of the things I took away from the first. What I remember was it was only 5 minutes long, but it was very emotionally effective. A lot of people commented on that, which wasn't, it was what I was hoping for, but it wasn't what I was expecting with how short it was and how like you never really get the full story. And so I wanted the feature version. You know, I had to explain it and I had to do the whole story, but I also wanted it to retain that like that emotional impact and to really like that burgeoning friendship, romance, or whatever, and also still have that like kind of mystery and like, you know, there's just a number of things that like I really wanted to maintain from the short film, but also had to expand. And so eventually I decided on this this queer kind of coming of age story, which is also a murder mystery, but is in large part a queer coming of age. And so I ended up writing the script and getting a bunch of people together over the course of several months to help me with it. I, you know, started a production company. I, you know, did all these things, and we pulled together and somehow made an entire feature film. And the production was pretty nuts.
So since we've gotten to know you a little bit from the time that we showed the short film version, I've been trying to find time to really dive into Walker Creek. And I, you know, like the ARG, like first, I'm very excited that you're a very YouTube forward filmmaker. Actually, that's not fair of me to put that on you. How do you feel about YouTube and doing like film fest circuits? Like,
yeah, I mean, my thing, so people have described me, including in this room, as a YouTube documentarian. I will say personally, I'm not the biggest fan of that title.
I also gave it to you. And my films happen to be on YouTube. It will not be that way forever, I assume. Period.
So I use YouTube as a distribution platform. And I think it's very effective for the exact audience I'm trying to reach. The like alternate reality game and found footage audience is, you know, sort of scattered. There's not like a streaming service, or at least there, you know, up until the last couple of years, there isn't like a streaming service you could point to and be like, that is the one that ARG and horror people go to, right?
Yeah.
Like that's only a very recent development. And so, you know, with YouTube, it was a very kind of just effective way to reach my audience in the way that I knew would reach them, right? So that is why I've distributed on YouTube up to that point. But it's not something that I'm like, I'm going to be on YouTube forever. It's some projects will fit better on YouTube and some projects will fit better through traditional distribution, and it'll depend on the project. Like, you know, I have a documentary I'm working on, and you know, I don't know if that's going to be on YouTube or on traditional distribution yet. I have to wait until it's, you know, getting closer to completion to really kind of make that decision. But it really, for me, comes down to like, what is the most effective way to reach the audience for this piece?
Good. I'm glad you know, I didn't mean that in a bad way. And honestly, I am kind of like, you know, I'm a YouTube defender. And I really think that a lot of people, especially here in the Bay Area, we have so many people with their nose turned to the sky whenever they're looking at film. They never watch a movie, and they completely discount YouTube. And I'm like, how can people who watch avant-garde film not look at the newest form that completely, like, YouTube is so different in the DNA that the editing is different. Like, we just watched that movie Don't Peek, and we were talking about it. And I had to tell Kyle, like, hey, great job capturing the different, like, DNA of filmmaking between analog horror, walking around at night, directional lighting, and a couple of vloggers on YouTube. Like, they feel different. So when I say YouTube vlogger, and I've thought a lot about this, I promise you, Alex, that what I'm really trying to note is that whenever we have like an Errol Morris or somebody who's like a, you know, Criterion documentarian, that when you look at the actual documentary and what makes it different is just that usually they fly to locations and there's kind of a leaning towards the cinematic. And I don't even mean that in a mean way, because honestly, I spend most of my time on YouTube now watching a lot of documentaries. I just think the YouTube thing is more centered around usually a singular personality, like you. Like, you're very involved, and these are very representative of like what I think is going to be a big career for you. But they're also kind of pulled from the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. To me, it's honestly, I think it's the more interesting platform right now. And you did mention that there is a streaming platform now. You weren't talking about POV horror, were you?
I mean, there's a number. There's POV horror. There's Found.
There's Found. I thought you were talking about Found.
No, that was a joke. Call me Evan. That one went flat.
That was horrible.
No, they were definitely talking about Found. That was not
Found. Yeah, that's what I thought they were talking about.
I think if anybody had attended our fest, they would know, is we showed fucking wall-to-wall bumpers of Found through the whole damn thing.
Right.
But, so does that mean you're going to be working with them in the future? Because I would love to...
I have spoken with them.
You have?
That is all I will say. But
okay.
yeah, no, I agree with you actually that YouTube is kind of the more interesting platform for documentary right now. And again, that's like one of the reasons why I've distributed my documentaries on YouTube up to this point. And like, I think in general for like both found footage and documentary, like YouTube is one of the most kind of like fast moving, fast growing spaces for that type of, film. Like you look at the ARG space and you look at like just found footage in general, and so much of it is on YouTube. Like so many like found footage filmmakers get their start on YouTube, or create their entire career from YouTube. Like you think about even like Kyle of Skinamarink, who started on YouTube, right? Or all of these
Connor O'Malley,
and all of these different found footage web series. Like it's definitely a very interesting space. It's kind of unlike any other streaming service. And like, I do think it lends itself a lot to creative experimentation and to like very distinctive styles that you wouldn't get through the mainstream, especially when it comes to documentary, right? Like you think about kind of the subjects of a lot of YouTube documentaries, like you would never get a studio to fund those.
No.
'Cause the audience, like there's a big audience, but not big enough to like spend hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars on it, right?
No.
And so like these are documentaries that would never be made through the studio system, but can exist in incredibly high, almost professional quality, if not literal professional quality.
Literally,
on YouTube, right? And so that's one of the really cool things about our current like era of indie filmmaking, I think, is that like we have traditional distribution and all these streaming platforms and stuff, and there's more every day, and that's really cool. And we also have YouTube, and like I think one of the things is like a lot of people think of YouTube as like separate, as an unrelated thing, when really I think it's part of the same general ecosystem, and people just discount it as like not a valid option for distribution a lot of the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, like Russell, you've reviewed several YouTube docs on this show, like the Trap Lore Raw stuff. I mean, that's
not even just docs. I mean, God, we just talked about it, like Rap World, Milk and Cereal, Don't Peek. These are all movies that just appeared on YouTube one day. And, I've been thinking a lot about it. I think it has a different relationship with an audience, too. When a movie pops up like that and it hits your algorithm or you get it recommended, I feel like we own that movie a little bit more than if, HBO Max was presenting it and we saw a commercial, or if it was on the top 10 of Netflix. It's kind of like, okay, here's a company and they're pushing their new acquisition or something. But when you find it on YouTube, at least me personally, I'm excited to share it. Cause like, dude, look at this tight shit I just found. Like, I don't know. It feels like more personal and connected.
The sort of transparency of view count and stuff too. If you can be like, oh, not that many people have seen this, like more people should watch this or what, so immediately that like, oh, this is an obscure thing that like more people should see because it's really good. Which streaming services don't give you that, and you kind of just assume a ton of fucking people have seen this stuff because it's on Netflix, like.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my fear here, and I'm happy, I feel like you're not going to go this direction, Alex, but it's like the Rocka guys or, anybody who like blows up given all the experience from YouTube and then they kind of never come back. And it's like, oh no, I'm above that now. Where I feel like, especially like your expertise in like ARG, like that can't really exist in just like a theatrical run. Or, I mean, maybe it can.
There's definitely much less like studio confidence, I would say, in something like that. Like,
how would you do it?
Exactly. Yeah. How do you even pitch that to say, like? But I think YouTube, they're like hungry for that kind of stuff. So it's just the perfect environment. And I think, like you said, I don't fit. I mean, and Alex, jump in here anytime and correct us if we're wrong. But I feel like you have enough respect for like the YouTube platform as like a method of distribution that you probably won't ever completely stop posting stuff that way, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, currently the way I use YouTube is like I only upload stuff that's very like a fully formed piece. Like I don't do like vlogs or like video essays and stuff. Like I don't do like the traditional YouTube content. I use my channel as a distribution avenue for feature films. Right. I think if I ever moved off like to doing feature films through traditional distribution, my YouTube channel would probably become like video essays and vlogs and just like me thinking about random stuff and making videos.
And I think you would excel at that, by the way.
For sure. Yeah.
I think your personality, like I would sit there and watch you like break down an ARG series or something. Honestly, I've been meaning to bug you about it because ARGs are so hard to pinpoint when they're done kind of in like a authentic, stealthy way. Where now I think a lot of people find it by going to like Reddit ARG. And they're kind of looking like, hey, can you direct me? Like,
yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about the ARG community, like it's very interesting in the way it's kind of currently constructed, and it's definitely true that a lot of people kind of either don't want to or are unable to or are scared to engage with ARGs like in their natural habitat, and so they like opt for, you know, going to Reddit and asking for recommendations or looking at Nightmind and Nexpo's YouTube channel and like just watching them review the ARG instead of actually experiencing the ARG, right?
Wait, hold on. You mentioned Nexpo and Nightmind. I have to ask, does Nexpo talk like that? Not in a video?
You can watch the history of analog horror. Nexpo does not talk like Nexpo, the presenter.
Yeah, see, dude, what is that? That whole like, I feel like Nexpo blew up and then everybody kind of copied this. I don't even know what to call it. It's almost like Upspeak or something like the.
Yeah, well, you know, it's funny because I asked him when I did my interview back in like 2022 or whatever, it was something along the lines, we were just talking about, you know, him having more of like his actual personality on the channel. And he was just talking about how like he does the voice because that's like what the audience kind of expects, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I do the same thing. You can hear me the way I'm talking right now and then, hi, my name is Alex Hera and this is my presenter voice.
Yeah,
like everyone does it, right?
Yeah, Nexpo
is for context is that the person who talks like they found the room and it was
no, that's not Nexpo.
Who is Nexpo? Does he sound? Is he like a cartoon character or something? What's he be doing?
No, Nexpo is a
host?
YouTuber.
He's spooky. So does he come off with like a spooky voice or what is this?
He's got a low spooky voice and
really?
long pauses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Terrell.
Nice.
Honestly, you might like those kind of YouTube videos are so parallel to like in-world camera stuff. Like, because a lot of it, you don't know. It's like, are you making this shit up right now? Or a lot of it will be like foreign footage that's being like translated or like urban legends that are, you know, we're just like musing on. I think you would fuck with it. They're hugely popular. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's the kind of videos that like you click on because you're like, oh, what is this? Or you like hover over the icon and it starts playing and then you end up just holding the hover and watching the whole thing, you know, because it's like it sucks you in.
They're incredibly well produced.
Yeah, for sure.
So, with what I remember, the goal probably isn't to launch on YouTube, right? Are you looking for distribution here? I know you're at the very beginning of the Film Fest run, but...
Yes, we're one film festival in, so where it goes from here, it still remains to be seen. We've got a ways to go. But yes, I am seeking traditional distribution for what I remember.
And would that include a physical media component?
I need a Blu-ray sign. Seal.
I'll make sure that happens.
Period. Yes. That'll be great. I'm excited.
Yeah, Alex, I mean... I kind of, in my mind, if I'm being honest, I've put you in the YouTube corner, and mostly just because you've had a lot of success there. And I think it is just, you make quality work and you've identified that like ARG, in-world cameras, Slender Man, like it lives online. And your history of analog horror, last I looked, it was over 2 million views. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
Which was shocking to
That's
us.
crazy.
No way.
That's rad.
It's, that's what we need. We need more like true niche, because like a lot of ARG analog in-world camera stuff, we get like the iceberg, which is kind of like cursory examination, where you went in depth. I mean, it's 3 hours long, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like,
it was originally supposed to be, and I think I've said this before, it was originally supposed to be a very abbreviated video essay about the history of analog horror. And then I just kept digging, and then I started emailing people, and then I started interviewing people, and suddenly it was 3 hours long.
Hell yeah.
It's like the Mission Impossible movie. Okay. 3 hour long movie.
Oh my God.
No, and I think people really kind of appreciated it. It took a while to gain traction. When we made it, we were like, if we get myself and my the associate producer on that project, Rain, we were like, if we get 50,000 views, we would be happy.
Yeah,
and
that's a lot.
It took a while to actually get to 50,000. I think it took a couple months to get to 50,000, and then all of a sudden it just exploded and started shooting up by the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
Up until the point it got to over 1 million, and we were just kind of blown away. And this was while we were making the Slenderverse docuseries, and so we were at least I was well, the potential audience for this just went from 50,000 for the history of analog horror to now potentially hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. Oh my God. It was kind of shocking, but
the pressure was on, huh?
Yeah, but I think people just really enjoyed and appreciated how seriously it took the history, and how much digging it did. There are other analog horror history videos, but they're very, I don't want to say inaccurate, but they're inaccurate.
Ooh,
right?
Just say it and call them out. I'm playing.
They kind of just they play the hits. They're Local 58 and Mandela Catalog, and maybe they'll talk about Ghost Watch or something. But a lot of the time they present this very sanitized version of the history that's just it's the major milestones. And I wanted to, I hit the major milestones in my documentary, but I wanted to also explore all the stuff that led up to them and followed them, and the stuff in between the peaks, right? And so I think we successfully did that, and people really enjoyed it. And it was difficult because it was kind of the first time anyone had really taken a serious look at the history of analog horror. Again, there had been a couple people that had tried, but they had just played the hits. And so really going through and being how do you chart a linear history of this thing? Took some time and took some effort to really figure out where do you even start? What do you include? A big part of the question for me at the start was how do you even define analog horror, right? What is the category we're looking at? Where are the bounds of it? Because that determines what history you're including. And so, I think people just really enjoyed how seriously and how in depth it was. To the point where it's been cited in academic papers. This is a fun story. There was this academic conference at one point that I just happened to hear about that was kind of talking about analog horror and stuff. And I just showed up just to see what they were talking about. And I asked a question, and I was like, hi, my name's Alex. I made a documentary about analog horror. And they were like, I recognize you, 3 of them.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Oh, I bet they were shitting themselves.
That's cool. Oh, God.
What a nightmare. If I was up on stage talking about something oh, shit, an expert.
Yeah, and you sitting in the audience, and you asked the question. Man.
So, well, you know what? So, at UF7, when we showed what I remember the short version, did you attend the Dread Central analog block that we put on?
Oh, yeah.
I did.
What did you think of that?
I enjoyed it. I think there were some cool pieces in there. And I enjoyed seeing analog horror on the big screen. It was a unique experience.
Right?
For sure.
Man, when I first was pestering people to get UF going, because I didn't know how to do a film fest, or honestly, I didn't really have the confidence to do it. But I started from that spot where I'm I want to watch shit that has no business playing in a theater, especially in the Bay Area. And it took 7 years with 3 digital fests, and then Mary Beth from Dread Central being hey, I have an idea. And I sat in that theater watching it, and to compare it to your documentary, I think the power that you have in what you made is that you kind of bring people through a whole journey. Like you start and you could know nothing, and you'll end and you'll feel like you know more than the regular person. And you have like kind of a complex history. Where what Mary Beth did was kind of just like, hey, check this out. Here's a very little sampling, and it's very like, it's popular shit. But like I sat there and I was like, how the fuck have we not done this before? Like just straight up, like that is YouTube. That is not movie. That is not film. That is like short form content that a lot of kids like found and latched onto. And then it grew organically. And man, I don't know. I'm sitting here and I'm like, God, we got to do something like that. I don't know. We should get together and program like another one if you'd be interested in it.
Totally.
Yeah, fuck.
You know, on that note too of kids getting latched onto stuff, there's a clear passion, Alex, that you have for analog horror. You wouldn't have done all this digging and all this, you know. So I'm curious, you explored the history of analog horror in general, but what's your history with it? Like with creepypasta and with all these kind of, you know, like how did you get into this? Were you just a kid surfing the web and you found scary stories and it pulls you in, or what was that kind of arc like?
So my history with horror stuff, it's very illuminating in terms of understanding exactly why I've made the things I've made. So when I was young, like 6, I want to say, I don't know, maybe somewhere elementary school at some point, my friends, one of them introduced me to Slender Man and to Marble Hornets. And this was, I had very little exposure to horror. I had seen like Alien maybe, and that was kind of it. And Slender Man was this, like, it was on the internet and it was, you know, it was on YouTube and it was like, it was real, but it wasn't real. And there were people like theorizing about it and how and it was like this whole world that I was like, just baffled by, you know, and this was also like at a time when the internet was still kind of more mysterious than it is now, right?
Right.
Like, especially where I was living, and this is for context, I was living in this like very small rural town in Washington. Like we're talking about 200 people, like very small.
Oh, damn, they knew everybody.
And so like I'm surrounded by the woods. It's not like a high-tech place by any means. And so like the internet was very much this like alien world. And Slenderman was this like the newest cutting edge horror thing that had really ever been made on the internet, right? And so like it was fascinating. And so my friends and I got really kind of obsessed with it. We used to like go out into the woods and like search for Slenderman. It was fun.
Hell yeah.
But that was kind of my intro to that whole thing. And I kind of set it down for a while, up until like high school, I think. And then I got into, by this point I had moved to California, and had really gotten kind of integrated in a more like high tech area. And so, you know, I found out about the Steam Winter Sale ARG, which that's a niche one. A lot of people probably haven't heard of that one.
I don't know what that is.
I've heard of it, but I don't know the details of it.
Yeah, so in 2016, there was this like very small, or 2015, it was not like a big ARG, but it had a big audience because it was Steam and people thought it was teasing like Half-Life 3 or something. And so like it was there were not that many like puzzles or anything. And it was not like a very like clearly defined, like this is the step and then you go to the next. It was like everyone was just kind of on Steam trying to like find different web pages and codes and like not really getting anywhere, but like occasionally a breakthrough would happen and they would be like, all right, this is it, like Half-Life 3 is coming. And so like I got really into this because I was a big Half-Life fan. And like this was also like my first time like really actively participating in an ARG, because like with the Slenderman stuff when I was in elementary school, that was really like just me kind of enjoying the content and like just kind of having fun with it. Not really like engaging with it in a real sense, especially not the ARG side. But in the Steam Winter Sale ARG, I really like started enjoying puzzles and stuff like that, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. And then I at some point, like not too long after, maybe like a couple months or a year, I got into like Inside of Mind and Night Mind and Nexpo, and started like learning about the entire like big world of ARGs. And I got back into Slender Man, and found out about like that there was this whole world beyond Marble Hornets that was like all of these other things, like Everyman Hybrid and Dark Harvest, and I went down the rabbit hole and I got obsessed and I learned about as many ARGs as I could. I started participating in a bunch of them. I couldn't get enough. Like, it was fascinating, and it was this storytelling that was like, it was horror, and it was a lot of it was very like well produced and well crafted, but it was like immediate, and it was interactive, and it was like it was real in a sense, right? Like, not really real, but like also it was like the experience of it is like it's real. And like I was so fascinated by it. I ended up like in one of my English classes, I wrote like, I think like a 20-page paper about ARGs, or like 15 pages, something like that. I can't really remember at this point.
That's a long paper.
A long paper about ARGs.
Yeah.
Nice.
I started
You're into it.
I started kind of thinking about like making my own, right? Because like a lot of it was relatively like some of these were very highly produced, and some of these were like not very highly produced, right? It was just a person with a camera.
Yeah.
And so I tried to make an ARG in the summer of 2019, and we shot like I think half of it or 70% of it, and it just didn't really come together in the way I wanted to. And this was like before I had like gotten really deep into filmmaking. And so this was kind of my first real film project, actually. And so, you know, I tried to make, it was called This Town Has No People, and it was already like my second ARG like idea. The first one was like way too large scale. It was called The Coalescence Network, and it was like this big like multiverse. It was nuts. But This Town Has No People, I tried to make it. And ended up kind of pulling the plug later on. But like, it wouldn't leave, right? The idea wouldn't leave me alone. The same as like what I was mentioning earlier with What I Remember and like the founder of drama. Like, these ideas just, they stick in my mind and they don't leave until I do it. And so, you know, then 2020 came around and we were in, you know, lockdown, and I got deep into analog horror, which was like ARG adjacent, I would describe a lot of the time. Like, it's not like you would necessarily like interact with analog horror in the same way as you would with like an ARG found footage web series, but like it's in the same realm, right? It's unfiction. And so I got really into like Gemini home entertainment. I had already been into Local 58, but Local 58, like I had been loving that for years. And so I decided to make like an analog horror video, because I was like, again, these people are like doing it in their houses. They don't really need actors. It's just editing. And I was starting to get more experienced with editing, you know, as I was getting deeper into like filmmaking and whatnot around that time. And so I made the first episode of Walker Creek, again, as like a one-off experiment, just kind of exploring and being like, can I do this? Like, would it be good if I did this? And I was like, wow, this is really cool. I'm going to make an entire series. And so like, and then the series just kept getting bigger and bigger. It was like, originally it was going to be like 10 or 15 analog horror videos. And then I was like, well, let's do some websites and let's do some like vlogs from a person who's like there in the modern day. And then like, you know, and then let's do like some side vlogs, like some puzzle videos. And then let's end the whole thing with a feature length finale of like a found footage horror movie. And so it just kept getting incrementally larger. And yeah, so I guess that's kind of the story of how I got into all of this. And I really enjoyed the process of making Walker Creek. And I really enjoyed especially the process of making the making of documentary about Walker Creek. And so come 2022, I was like, well, Walker Creek's over. The documentary about Walker Creek is over. What am I going to do next? Well, I'm a little curious about the history of this whole analog horror thing I've been doing for the last 2 years. Like, let's find out what that's all about. And then here we are back at the story I told you about how the history of analog horror came together.
Right. How old are you, Alex?
I'm 21.
Damn.
21. Okay. Because I used to read a lot of like how I first got into Slender Man and stuff was all the stuff was just like creepypasta still then. People weren't really like doing the video, you know, kind of stuff with it all yet. But you know, we used to like share all these different shit we'd find on like Reddit and back then like Face Punch forums. There used to be a lot more forums, I feel like, than there are now.
A lot of
I
them.
miss forums so much.
Yeah, for real.
Especially like in the unfiction ARG community.
Yeah.
We feel so strongly about forums because the unforums were such a huge part of our community for so many years, and then they went down. And now the ARG community is so like scattered, like I was kind of alluding to earlier.
Yeah, and so that was just that was my introduction to Slender Man, and I remember just kind of the like profound effect reading and it's crazy because it was just something somebody probably wrote at their computer, and a lot of times it would just scare the shit out of me in the middle of the night when you're in the dark reading these things, and like how they stick with you. Like I still remember like reading Ted's Caving Journal for the first time on like Angel Fire.
Oh yeah.
And trying to hit next on that last page, and you're like, there is no other page, and it just gave me so much anxiety. And like, so it's cool to kind of hear when you said you were 6 and you were watching Marble Hornets. I was like, okay, I'm fucking old now. I know what Russell and Terrell feel like.
Don't throw me in there. Russell old.
I am. Hey, here's the thing. I remember being like discouraging to people who were into Slender Man. I'm like, shut the fuck up. What is this? Came out of a forum? Like,
didn't you hate Slender Man?
Well, it's like, the worst thing is that I feel like Slender Man as like a internet urban legend is kind of the best way to think about him, where it's almost like an entity that's digital, right? Like tie him in with like Koji Shirishi and stuff. Like he's got to exist over multiple platforms, because every time people try to like nail it with one, like here's the video game. You look at the video game, you're like, I don't get it. Like if that's your introduction, it's like, why are we in the woods pulling pages of paper off of trees? Like what does it have to do with a dude?
Yeah, I never got it.
Like, and then, I remember I went with Terrell to watch the movie.
Oh, it was horrible.
And
I watched it in D-Box. I don't know nothing about no damn Slender Man. So I watched this movie. I'm like, why do people like this? I was so confused.
But by the time the movie came out, I knew enough and I had an appreciation.
I didn't know anything about it.
Where I was like, oh, they blew it. They're doing it again. Like you're hurting the mythos or not. Because I could also imagine being like a part of the growing lore and then being like, yeah, y'all don't fucking get it because you shouldn't. Like it's not for you.
Alex, I've seen the movie.
How the community thinks of it. I mean, like what we're talking about here, like what you're touching on, is like exactly why I wanted to make the Slenderverse docuseries. Is because Slender Man is like this entity that's grown so large on the internet, like, and so large in pop culture, really, like through the video game and through the memes and through the movie and through the unfortunate events in 2014, has such a large reputation. And so like you could ask like the average American, like, do you know who Slender Man is? And like I would say there's a good chance that like a huge number of them actually will say, yes, I've heard of that, right? It's crazy. But like also there's so much misunderstanding about it, right? Because like those couple of things I mentioned are the only things a lot of people know about Slender Man. And so they'll be like, this is dumb. Like I don't get it. Like this, But like, I have a 6-hour docuseries about all of the reasons that it's actually like interesting and good, and all of the like the reasons that people actually love it, right? And these were all things that like almost no one was talking about outside of like the ARG community. And I was like, there's so much history here to talk about this massively popular entity that no one knows. And so that's why I made the docuseries.
Yeah, I highly recommend, if you're kind of like me and you're old and turning to dust and you want to learn more and have a like nuanced understanding of Slender Man, I highly recommend you do this. Go watch a self-induced hallucination.
Oh my God,
yeah. If you're listening to the show, that is like film. Like it's got a little bit of the pretension, but it's got a very zoomed out, artful, very competent packaging of Slender Man and like our culture dealing with them. And then go watch that 6-part docuseries, because you kind of need to get overwhelmed and then have it breaking down. And I think
that's a good order to watch in,
dude. It's the only order, and that's what I've been telling people.
So skip the movie.
No, the movie.
I'm just checking because I don't know.
Well, the movie's a part of it, but it's not one that you need to take. Like, I think understanding the movie and how it fit into this broad culture and then watching it makes more sense than going blind into it and being like, "What the fuck?"
Yes, what I did.
I mean, honestly, it's just kind of boring, which is the worst thing you can do for a movie. Yeah, I don't know.
I haven't seen it. Because I knew, I was like, this is going to be some dog shit. I'm not watching this. And I didn't, because I heard nothing but bad things. That I was like, all right, good reason not to give this.
Yeah, it came out like 10 years ago, 2015, something like that.
Yeah, with no
as
fanfare.
As the Slender Man researcher, I've had to watch that movie more times
You did?
than
Oh
that.
my God.
You know,
Or you ever wanted to, probably.
I remember back when we were just like doing the blog thing, I used a frame from that movie because one of my favorite things cinematically is watching people watch movies. And that had a great one where the characters were sitting there watching like Slenderman stuff. And I thought that was such a good like launch pad for discussion of Slenderman, but like they dropped the ball completely. So the imagery worked for me, but that was about it.
Yeah, no, the Slenderman movie, it has some very good cinematography and some great like moments with Slenderman. And there are moments here and there where you're like, they almost get it, but like it never gets there.
No, yeah. Why do you think that is? I feel like there probably wasn't a single authentic like voice on set that really understood it.
So it's actually a very kind of not like overly complicated, but kind of a complicated subject. So the thing with Slenderman is that so much of it was built by the audience, by the community, by the internet.
Right.
And so, you know, when you're talking about like, you know, marble hornets and all of these things, these are the things that define Slenderman. But when you look at the movie, it was made in consultation with Victor Surge, who was the original creator of Slenderman on the forum, which is a great thing. Like, it's super cool that he's involved, but also Victor Surge was not the person that built Slenderman into what Slenderman is.
No, not at all.
And so, you know, you're kind of starting at there are other people that could have also been consulted, I think. I think part of it is also like Hollywood not quite understanding like what makes that creature so effective, which was a lot of the found footage aspects. It was the ARG aspects. It was the way that each interpretation of Slenderman was different. And so, you know, trying to do like an official or a standard Slenderman kind of like puts you on the wrong foot, because like the thing that makes Slenderman so effective, in my opinion, is that Slenderman thematically and in terms of like style and everything represents something different for every single project. And so, you know, when you have a film where Slenderman is just, he's the bad guy, then you're kind of missing a lot of the point of having Slenderman in your story, right? Because he can be something thematically. He can be something stylistically. He's not just scary man with no face who haunts you. He's more than that. But I don't think the movie really did that a lot. And I think also the last thing about the movie, and the thing that makes it a little bit more complicated, is that it was starting to be made before the events in Wisconsin, and then it was made and edited after the events in Wisconsin. And there was a lot of controversy. There was the father of the victim was at one point, I believe, you know, making public remarks about the movie. And so there are reports around that time when the movie came out from different news outlets reporting that Sony like cut huge parts of the movie out because they were worried about backlash. And so basically they made an entire movie. And I don't know how good the version would have been without the cuts, without the studio editing, right? I don't know how good that version would have been, but I would imagine it would have been better than the version where the studio started cutting out scenes a couple weeks before release.
Yeah. I mean, it would have almost had to have been, right? At least somewhat better. But
well, what a nightmare too, because you know, earlier I mentioned that like analog, like a lot of little kids latched onto it. And I only say that because my nephew, one day he came over and we were hanging out doing a family thing, and he had like kind of casually dropped like the name Trevor Henderson, and he was like Trevor. 8. He was 8, and I'm like, what the fuck? How do you know him? Like, because I talked to Trevor like forever ago, and he'd done some stuff for UF, and now, you know, he's Siren Head. He's working on movies, like Tarot.
Did he do something on Tarot with the cards, those creatures? Yep.
And I was like, how do you know? And he just started, he showed me a thing I'd never seen where he did an illustration of, it's called like Extra Slide. And it's like, oh, at, you know, like Tambark Parks, sometimes there's an extra slide and that thing's alive. And I'm like, man, first off, what a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
Like a little creepypasta kind of short. But I'm also like, damn, the reach. And then we started talking, and he's the one that showed me the analog Godzilla suit. What's that story called?
Man in the Suit.
Yeah. And I was like, what is... And first, I had to say, He showed me on his tablet, which he had limited time to use. And the pacing of these are so slow. And I'm like, it's so strange because we kind of attribute like children with just having no attention span anymore. Yet here's this like vaguely visual narration, which I mean, analog's been called like what is it? Not stop motion. PowerPoint horror. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
which
it's
is
like,
not inaccurate to say about a lot of
it's not, but yet he was completely engaged. And also it's Godzilla. And as a horror fan, the Monster Kid thing, we do not always see eye to eye. Like Godzilla does not do it for me personally, but I was into that.
Boo.
So
I like Godzilla.
Okay. I apologize, Evan. It just, I don't, I kind of like I'll tell you, I like Godzilla more after watching that analog, The Man in the Suit. Have you ever seen it?
I have.
Oh, I know you have. But Evan, have you ever watched it?
I haven't.
Dude,
okay. Watch that. I've watched, there is a newer Godzilla found footage series that I've watched.
No, not found footage.
You should watch that. But
the thing is, it's just, it's analog. So it's like this, it's images you're looking at, and it's like you feel it being made in Premiere. And it's just about the dude who wore the suit and what happened to him. And I couldn't have been more engaged. It's so strange. I don't know how to articulate it. And I also, I would love to put it in a theater, except I could see, all these film programmers out here. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why are you showing these movies? And I think we've proven them wrong with how people show up, but that is kind of a stretch. I don't know, Alex, I would totally force you to go up there and intro some Man in the Suit, or like, I don't know, what would be some other very contrarian picks to like put in a theater that would just never belong there?
Ooh, I mean, there are a number of like analog horror series. Honestly, I would suggest some like found footage ARGs. Like there is stuff that has never been shown in a theater that would be very, very cool to show in a theater.
Well, on virtual, we did I Am Sophie, right?
Yeah. No, was that virtual or was that in person?
I think it was virtual.
Yeah, that shit's tight, and it just came back too, which is awesome.
Yeah, but like the problem with an ARG, like one. And I floated this, I know it's a little behind the curtain, but I kept getting shot down, was Petscop. I'm like, hey.
Oh, that would have been so cool.
Can we just get a theater for 6 hours and show all of Petscop in its entirety? I really feel like that arc there, it's so bleak, and it starts with like, let's play like energy, and it just turns into like this David Lynch labyrinthian play through a game. I think it would work. And honestly, how could you not call that like true avant-garde, right? Like that
absolutely.
But the problem is, how do you capture that ARG vibe? Like part of Petscop was every time a video dropped and reading the comments on YouTube and like getting a new video and being like, why is this only a minute long? There's so much engagement before you even start watching. Like, how do you properly package that in a theater?
Well, I mean, I think there's a sense in which it's kind of impossible, right? Because like, I think we were talking about earlier, like YouTube has this like sort of this structure to it that allows you to tell stories that like you don't really get to in a theatrical distribution in a studio system. But there's also like, there are some interesting, like, for example, Interloper, the ARG, if you guys have heard of that.
Nope.
Is a fantastic ARG. It's currently running. It is one of the most well-produced ARGs I've seen in years. It's phenomenal. And one of the things I really love about it is that what it does in all of the videos, because it's like an investigation of this mystery in the Source engine. Which, if you don't know, the Source engine is like the game engine that all of Valve's games run on. And so it's this like investigation of this weird like sentient AI in the Source engine.
Oh, that's
every
fucking
video,
tight.
They come out like months apart, and they always talk in like, especially the opening minutes and even during it, like about what the community was doing in between the video uploads, right? And so that's always incorporated into the story in this really, really interesting way where like, I get busy. I don't really have time to participate at this point in like ARGs in a super hands-on way, but I'm able to keep up with what, the actual like interactive ARG components are because they incorporate it into the story through the main videos, which I think is really interesting and something that like I've seen before, but have never seen to the degree that Interloper is doing it. Yeah.
Man, that's fucking interesting. Did you catch Leech this year at UF?
I did.
So, like Leech is all about this kind of very YouTube phenomenon where, I mean, lolcows aside, where like people will build whole like money stream revenues out of recontextualizing other people's content, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just what they're doing is what we're talking about right now. It's like, hey, you didn't have time. Maybe you weren't in the forums. Maybe you haven't read all the comments. But here are all the important things that influenced this next video.
Well, and this is also like kind of fundamentally how the ARG community works right now in a lot of senses with things like, Nightmind, where what Nightmind does is takes a bunch of videos and like all of the components of an ARG and compiles it into a big video where he kind of walks you through how the ARG works and what the story was and what all the different things that happened were. And then a lot of the time he ends the video with like, hey, the ARG's still going, so go watch the ARG, like go participate now. And so like it does a lot of that like work for the audience. The downside of that is that there's some audience members who just will only watch the Nightmind summaries and not go participate in the ARG. But like it's even that standing, like it's still a critical kind of resource for the ARG community.
Alex, the problem is I think I'm dumb. And like when I look at stuff like when even Adult Swim was doing all that interesting shit, like with This House Has People in It.
Yeah.
I remember watching a recap video of that and somebody being like, oh, well, if you looked at the whiteboard in the kitchen, they had a phrase there and it was a password on the website. And I'm like, I would have never put that together. Like never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm
you have to, I mean, like if you want to participate in ARGs, you do have to be kind of obsessive about it, or you have to be willing to just sit back and like enjoy watching the community solve it. Right. And this is something that I've been thinking about recently because I'm making this ARG web series this summer with this whole team. And so we've been kind of thinking about like, how do you hide like codes in videos and like, how do you like, structure an ARG in a way that like, a mass audience can enjoy it, but like also which isn't like so simple that like the hardcore ARG fans aren't gonna like just write it off and be like, this is boring, I can solve it in 2 seconds.
Yeah, well, if you figure it out, I'd love to know. It's such a tightrope because, again, the best experience you could have with an ARG is participating and like discovering, right? Like if you figure that out, I can't imagine what that feeling would be like, but I imagine you'd like jump out of your computer chair and be like, holy shit, that audio,
incredible.
When you slow it down, it's actually, like there's a, like even urban legends, like backmasking. I know a couple of people have actually done that, but in ARGs, it's got a whole new life. Like you hear a little blip and it's like, that's a thing. And, and if you're in this kind of like bubble community where everybody's very savvy, then you might want to outdo them. But it's like, well, who's your audience now? Terrell, have we lost you? Have you ever participated?
I'm not familiar with ARGs and all this stuff, so I can't participate. So I'm listening.
I think, Alex, we should hit him with a couple of videos of people breaking them down. Because you don't...
Ooh, yeah, some good, like, Nightmind summaries, yeah.
Okay.
I think you'd get into them. And honestly, they're so parallel. Like, they're hand in hand with the shit we do.
Yeah.
Like...
Okay.
Yeah, although I don't think you would like Petscop, which I...
Yeah, you said 6 hours. That's too much. I don't know. That's long.
It's so
I don't know.
Fucking good, dude.
Oh, okay.
Well, God damn it.
Okay.
Alex, I'm going to hold you to that. We got to do some analog ARG kind of presentation.
Absolutely.
At UF. I love the idea of taking YouTube stuff and putting it on screen, which... I say that fully aware that you are a filmmaker and I will remove the YouTube documentary description. I just think it's more interesting.
I'm glad
personally.
they checked you on that. But
shut the hell up. No, to me, when I hear a documentary is coming from YouTube, there's no fucking filter other than all of the parameters that YouTube makes you operate in. But I think it's like I'm hearing this direct from the source. It's not like they had to raise money and they're making all their producers happy. And to get a plane out into Florida, they had to be like, there's none of that. It's straight up like, I'm going to hear from an enthusiast or an expert, and they're just going to break it down how they see fit. And also no time restraint. We're not looking at like a 90-minute runtime. we could do.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reality in which like a studio system would let me make a 6-hour documentary about Slender Man. Like, it literally would never happen.
Maybe if there was like real murders, I could see Netflix doing it.
Oh yeah, documentary. Like they'll split it up in parts, like a limited series.
Some
or whatever.
crime series where it's very like sexy and like, oh, Slender Man. And honestly, I think your documentary is directly on par with all that, with all the B-roll and the production. It looks fantastic. So
yeah, you're on a roll. You've been doing your thing and you're staying busy. But so tell us, is there anything else that you have that you want to share? Little sneak peeks or anything before you go, and like something you want to like throw out there that's coming up? We like sneak peeks over here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on a couple things. There's a charity event coming up in June that I've been doing a number of things for. So stay tuned on my social media.
Wait, what's the charity event? I want to hear.
Yeah, what is it?
So it's called Slender for Gender, and I don't think I'm allowed to say really any more than that because we haven't really announced it yet. It's been like soft announced-ish, but so that's happening June 10th to the 21st. And so I highly recommend you come check it out.
Is it online or in person?
I'm just working away.
Yeah, because you said you're writing a book. You said you got all this stuff coming up. What's the book about? Or is that another?
Well, it's an epistolary novel, partially, and it'll release hopefully in the fall. Alongside a couple of other things I'm working on.
That's soon.
But that remains to be seen. We are also gearing up for the Indiegogo campaign for Final Transmissions, which should be sooner or later. So stay tuned for that as well.
Terrell?
Yeah, you're what?
You didn't ask? Epistolary? Do you know what that means?
No. What does that mean? What is epistolary?
It's like the found footage equivalent of a book.
Yeah.
Because I was confused because Russ was talking about reading a found footage book, but how does a found footage relate to a book? How could you read a book and be like, oh, there's a camera? I don't get it. Am I crazy?
You could be holding the journal.
It's a book that's written in an entirely immersive way, in the same way that found footage is like entirely in-universe footage, right? Mm-hmm. So the book is written in a way where all of the text in the book exists within the world of the story. So it's like it's letters, it's first-person journal entries, it's documents.
Oh, well, that makes sense. I thought you were there reading a book, and it's like, how is it found footage? Because I could read Harry Potter and be like, oh, this is found footage. They got cameras with their little wizards and wands. So I don't know. So I was just so confused. But okay, that makes sense. Okay, the entries and all that, the journals, I get that. Okay.
Yeah, or like chat logs.
That makes sense.
Like,
Russell didn't tell me that. Things have gotten
worse since we last spoke is a good one. Yeah. That's like all chat logs.
Okay.
But yeah, no, Dracula and Frankenstein are also like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's an old school thing, like it's a traditional thing.
Damn, Alex, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to eat up all your time with YouTube, but I have to.
You sure did. All we talked about was YouTube. That's why I was sitting here like I was ready to hear about these actors, Ryan and all this stuff, and Sam. He found her fighting with these people. I wanted to hear about that too, but you talk about YouTube.
You are in the Bay Area, and there's no reason we shouldn't do more. I know you're busy. We all are, but we, schedule something. We can make it happen.
I would be happy to talk more.
Yeah, we gotta have you back because I want to ask you about the drama stuff, the mumblecore, and what's your background with like drama and
drama?
Why'd you get into that?
I want to hear drama too.
No, I mean the genre of the film.
I thought you said there was some tea. I was like, why are we talking about YouTube?
Hold on. Do you have a heart out right now? I have to ask. I would love to get you at least talking about the Kodak work that you did in this.
I do not have a heart out. I am here to talk until you want me to stop talking.
Okay, then here. I'm not going to eat up your whole day, but so on my end, when we got what I remember, we have about like 8 programmers that watch stuff, and then we all talk about the footage and like it doesn't work. And I mean, you're an alum. And when it came in, we were all excited. But immediately, Evan was one of the first 2. You're just like, no, it's great. Like, it's in.
Yep.
And so I didn't end up watching it. Now, I was running around putting out little fires throughout the whole fest. And I mentally, when you do the programming, there are a couple movies that if you haven't watched them and they're programmed, it's awesome. Now I get to watch it for the first time in a theater. So I went in there and I was in my seat, all excited. And when I saw your codec work, and what I mean here is, found footage glitch art is such a prominent part of these movies. And when you don't know that somebody's kind of like up the game on it and it looks so authentic, I was sitting there and I had this like sinking feeling where I'm like, holy shit, is this part of the movie? I'm like, do I have to run up in the booth and be like, dude, cut this off? And thankfully, it is part of the movie, but how did you achieve that? I had many heart attacks in there, but I just tried to read the room
crazy.
And I'm like...
You need someone else next to you to do that because you were going crazy. He was a mess, y'all. Just any little thing. Like,
I think that just speaks to the quality of the work, though.
It does. And how did you do it? Like, how did you...
Yeah, so for context for our listeners who haven't seen What I Remember utilizes data moshing as an incredibly effective and important part of the visual style of the film. And so essentially what data moshing is explaining this in a really concise way is...
In layman's terms?
In layman's terms.
You put on metal music and you get in a circle.
When a video is encoded through a video codec, what it does is it takes the video and compresses it to save file space, essentially. And one of the ways it does this in certain codecs is it'll convert frames. God, I hope I'm explaining this properly. It converts frames into iframes and pframes. Iframe, so like say you have a shot, and it's a shot of like a person standing on a mountain, and then they walk across the frame. So the iframe is all of the information in the frame in the first frame. And then the p-frames only include the information that moves. Mm-hmm. So like the sky, the ground, all of those pixels are not saved in the p-frames. They're only saved in the iframe. The p-frames only have the pixels of the person as they walk, because those are the pixels that are changing, right? And so what you can do with data moshing is you can delete the iframe. And so you can essentially take a shot and then only add the p-frame pixels from the next shot. And so what it looks like in practice is like the footage of the pixels of the next shot are like overlaid and mapped onto the previous shot in 3D space. And it's really interesting in terms of its like style and whatnot. I saw that not a lot of people had used it in found footage. And I really enjoyed it in terms of like the couple of the things I'd seen with data moshing. I thought it was really, really cool. And when I was writing the film, I had envisioned it having some sort of glitching and like something, but I didn't really know what it was. I wrote the script pretty traditionally. It didn't have all this glitching, and it wasn't like it wasn't cut up in exactly the same way the film is. The film is very nonlinear in the final edit. And there's a lot of stuff that's like moshed together. Fun fact, the film was 2 hours and 40 minutes long in the assembly.
Oh, God.
And it's 70 minutes in the final.
Wow. That's long.
Yeah, hearing all these people come on here and say their movie was also 3 hours long makes me feel a lot better.
Said the same thing, and Evan's movie's hella fucking long.
Yeah,
but y'all gotta
go. But yeah, so editing the movie down, like as I was heading into the edit, I knew I wanted the film visually and structurally to sort of represent this idea of like memory and degraded memory, because a huge thematic part of the film is it's about memory. And so I wanted to like, how do you visually communicate memories bleeding and collapsing and blurring together? Like, how do you visually communicate that? So it was an interesting challenge, and data moshing was just kind of the perfect thing, right? Mm-hmm. Like with, since the footage was the memories, so the footage blurring together and blending together and becoming the footage becoming degraded was the perfect kind of visual metaphor for memory. And so I ended up getting really deep into it. At one point, there's these data mosh videos on YouTube from like 15 years ago of like one of the OG data moshers, and I ended up getting in contact with him to like help me learn how to data mosh, which was really cool.
Oh wow, okay.
And so I ended up just really, really loving the creativity of data moshing and the artisticness of it. Like, it really added this layer to the film that like wasn't there in the script, that wasn't there in production, but was there in post. That was like, you know, taking all of the footage we'd shot, all of the memories, and then mashing it all together into this degraded, blurred, like corrupted mess, which felt so thematically poignant for what
it
the film
does.
was about.
And for what memories are and how they slowly get degraded and fade away.
It was very much about like, you know, how I felt memories experienced. And it's a very complicated process to like literally do it. There's like 6 or 7 steps I had to go through for every single data mosh. So like you have to render the video, then you have to re-encode the video, and then you have to, you know, edit the iframes and p frames and then render it again. It's a whole thing. But it was worth it in the end. It was worth the hundreds of hours I spent on data moshing, because I think it turned out really cool. And a lot of people have told me that the data moshing is their favorite part of what I remember. I've also had some people that said it was their least favorite part of what I remember, which is funny. But yeah, so it was. I feel very happy with it. I really enjoyed it, and I think data moshing is very cool. Is kind of the ultimate takeaway of this.
I think having that extreme divide on the reaction too just shows that like all of the coolest art to me has that sort of polarizing effect with different aspects of it. So I think that just shows you made something fucking
absolutely.
cool.
I mean, what I remember got increasingly less normal. Like every time I went back to it during the production process and the post-production process, it was always make it less normal, like make it weirder, was always what I was kind of trying to go for there. And yeah, I think it worked out.
Well, Alex, you might have to teach a class on data moshing. I think even from like when we're dealing with in-world camera, it's become part of the language when you're in this like group of fandom where the distortion can make or break a movie. Like sometimes you'll have digital film and then they'll have like VHS assets over it. And you're like, man, it's distracting. And you know, like a broad audience isn't going to really care. Some people, you're like, come on, could we like switch it up a little bit?
Yeah, no, that's exactly how I feel. Like there's, you know, found footage movies and analog horror, you know, videos and whatnot that I watch, and like the glitching just doesn't feel authentic. It's like it's clearly an overlay. It's clearly edited in, right? Like, you know, the glitching is not real. And obviously, like in most of these movies, the glitching is not real. Like it's not on the tape, it's not on the camera, right? But like there's ways to make it look authentic and there's ways to not. With what I remember, a big like part of it for me was like I wanted the glitching to be authentic. Like, what would it look like if you actually glitched footage? Like, no overlays, no fancy editing. Like, just what does it actually look like when you fuck up a video file? And so I really wanted it to be like real glitching. And so that's exactly what I did. Like, it's literally the way that you data mosh is you open up the video codec and you start cutting frames and shifting stuff around, and then you re-render it. And so it's literally like getting into the guts of the video and like and messing with it.
Wow. And that's why I had 58 heart attacks during that goddamn movie.
We currently had one of the most unique experiences watching what I remember.
Oh, it was a nightmare. I'm sitting there and it's like this... it's a very effective film narratively, and yet also the data moshing, what a fantastic way to transition from a scene to a scene. It like works just on a technical level, like beautifully. Yet the whole time I'm like, God, I hope it's supposed to be there. Oh man, it was rough. Eventually I decided that because you hadn't got up streaming, that we were good. So I ran with it.
You were watching that movie and you were terrified for the wrong reason. I describe what I remember as like a secret horror film. Like it's not a horror film, but it's a horrifying film. You were scared for the wrong reason.
Yeah, I was a little zoomed out, but I settled in there. And you made a beautiful film. You know, we hadn't talked about this before, but I know we're wrapping up. I don't know, Terrell, you want to tell Alex about what we decided?
Oh yeah, I wasn't sure if you wanted to say that.
Yeah,
but
fuck it. Let's do it.
yeah, we had the jury meeting and all that great stuff, and you came up a lot. Everyone loved your movie. And I brought everything back to the crew here, and we all talked about the awards and everything. And we wanted to present Alex Hera, our Founders Award of A. This is like the first, so you deserve it. Your movie was great. So yeah, so that's what we wanted to tell you. I didn't know if we were going to do that today, but yeah,
I'm honored. Thank you so much.
Awards in art are dumb, but it's our way of acknowledging your film for being. Honestly, I think it's pretty important. In every kind of subgenre, we kind of hit a wall, and then it's like, well, nobody's doing anything new. I think we had a journalist come out organically to Up 7, and one of the things they wrote was like, everybody seems kind of happy just playing in the same water. Like, nobody's doing anything different. Yeah. Yet with your film, it's like, well, one, you took on the drama approach, which isn't like completely unique in the in-world camera thing, but you're stylizing, like it almost felt like it's very astute that you have the I Want to Believe poster in the background, because there's kind of like a 90s TV vibe to it. Yet you're very upfront with like the data moshing, which is just a new platform. Like maybe you didn't invent it, but you've utilized it in a way that people are gonna be trying to copy you. Like I think it's honestly pretty important. So it's just our way to put some shine on that film.
I'm so honored.
I hope so. You deserve it.
I'm so happy that all of it is so well received. Like the data moshing again was like something where I had never really seen it used for narrative. It had been used in like some music videos and some like vlogs and like some tests, but like there's so many more things you could do with it, I felt. And like the same with found footage in general. Like my thing is always like I want to push boundaries. I want to like make films and explore things that people aren't exploring. And so again, like a big part of like what I remember, like make it more weird every time I went back to it was like I wanted to like push as many boundaries as I can, like with the drama approach, with the data moshing, with the scoring, with like the cinematography, like everything. I wanted to really like push as many boundaries as I can and be like, what do you think?
Yeah,
and then people left crying.
They did. Legit. I walked up.
It's funny because like I hadn't really I'd only shown it to a couple of people before the premiere, and so I was really like kind of nervous. I was like, I don't know, like it's so experimental, it's so risky, it's so like I don't know if people are gonna like it. And then I think I was like we're maybe like halfway through the film, and I looked up, and there was someone in the row in front of me just full body like sobbing, and I was like, oh, I guess this is effective.
Yeah, it really was. All right, so before what were you going to say, Evan?
I just think it undeniably sort of pushes boundaries too, like you're saying, because like we all just in this conversation, the three of us took away like different things from it as like the part we related to the most or the part we liked the most, and because I'd mentioned before like the mumblecore sort of aspect, like I really like the part that I loved the most was sort of the just Swanbergian, I guess, for lack of a better word, approach to just letting the characters sort of run the story, like, and I think that's, I don't know, just not something that happens a lot in the in-world camera space. So I think you sort of incorporated something new in that regard too, because a lot of times I think the end goal or the sort of story, for lack of a better word, dictates what happens moment to moment, as opposed to like emotions or character interactions driving it. And I think you accomplished that within an in-world camera framing, which is cool, and I want to see more of, and I'm trying to do myself.
That's so awesome. I'm very excited for your film, by the way. But I really appreciate that. Like I'm very big on character-driven stories, and like again, like I mentioned, I had these other versions of what I remember that I tried to write, and they were all plot forward. And so that's why those versions never worked, and why I kept going with the story I did go with, which was like a queer coming of age and like the characters, and just like really honing in on just their emotions and their lives and just letting them live and exist and breathe on the screen. And like, I mean, there is plot in the murder mystery aspect of it. For sure. But like, for the most part, it's a very character-driven film, which meant it was a pain to write, but I think it worked out really well. Especially because I'm being given an award. Like, wow, again.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
well, a much deserved award.
Yeah.
All right, Terrell. I'll let you do your thing now. Sorry.
All right. So before you go, I do want to make sure you plug like your websites or your social medias or whatever. So people can go follow and get updates on what you got coming up because you got a lot.
Yes, I do. So you can find my website at www.alexhera.com. You can find my YouTube at youtube.com/@alexhera_. You can find my Instagram at alexhera_. And yeah, keep up with what I'm doing. I've got a bunch of stuff coming in the fall. I've got something coming up in June. I've got stuff coming next year. I mean, just stay tuned. I am busy.
Okay, I see.
Looking forward to it.
I'm excited for everything to see what you got coming up and we'll probably see you again at UF. We got virtual coming up in UF 9, hopefully.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to both.
Yep.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, it was awesome to have you on here, and you're well deserved for that award. And yeah, we're gonna see y'all next time. Thank you for coming to Footage Foreplay. Until next time, guys. Bye.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye, y'all. Yeah, love you, Alex.
Thanks for listening to Footage Foreplay. If you enjoy the show, please consider leaving a review, sharing it with a friend, or simply hitting like. These small gestures are a great free way to support this mayhem, and if you find some footage we should be fondling, email us at footageforeplay@gmail.com. Check back every Tuesday and Thursday for new episodes, and remember, don't skip the foreplay.